Hello, everyone. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. This video is from my hometown, Bowling Green, Kentucky. This occurred January 26th, I believe it was, like very early in the morning. It is a interesting incident, and I'll read the news article on it, or one of the news articles on it, and then talk about it. So an arrest was made after a teenager was shot and killed in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Bowling Green police responded to the shots fired call at 110 Audley Avenue shortly before 2 a.m. Sunday. Officers discovered a 16-year-old male dead with multiple gunshot wounds in the backyard of an apartment complex. Tylan Barnett, 22, is charged with the juvenile's murder. According to police, Barnett said his sister alerted him earlier to someone possibly trying to break in the residence. He said he saw two people outside and thought they were the attempted break in subjects. He then went outside, observed a person running, and fired multiple times at a second person. Following the shooting, Barnett hid the firearm in the brush line next to the apartment. He is charged with tampering with physical evidence for that. The victim's name will be released once it's notified, says the article. Since this article has come out, they have identified the juvenile as Jamarco Dye. Last name spelling D-Y-E. Jamarco Dye. So Kentucky, use of force laws are found under KRS Chapter 503, and that talks about use of force and the use of deadly physical force and the protection of yourself, protection of others, protection of dwellings, etc. And this is why education and training is so important. So this guy, Tylan here, I guess you could say his heart was in the right place by wanting to go to his sister's residence and protect her from people trying to break in. Where this is located at here in town, it's a place where I would not want to live. I'll just say that. There's been other things happen in that neighborhood, and then literally right across the road from it, has been multiple murders. It's in the west side part of town. It's just not. Like I said, I would not want to live over there. So this guy's heart was, I guess, in the right place by wanting to go over there and protect his sister, but his brain was not in the right place. You cannot shoot at people if you cannot articulate that you feared for your life. And it's not just you saying, "Oh yeah, I feared for my life." Like there has to be circumstances there that would lead a reasonable person to believe, like, yeah, it was reasonable that this guy feared for his life. Based off the information that was in that report, him seeing some people who looked like they could have been involved and then shooting at them, that is not justifiable use of deadly physical force. Just because you see some people who you think could have been involved in the potential break in or attempted break in does not give you any justification to start shooting at them, even if they start running away from you. I would say the prey predator thing kind of maybe kicked in at that point, like here he is, he's the quote unquote, he's the predator, so to speak. Now, I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. But boom, these people start taking off running. Like those predatory senses kind of probably start to come into play a little bit. And he starts shooting at them. And now he's in jail, and he will definitely, most likely, be going to prison. Now, I don't think that how our Commonwealth attorney has been acting with giving plentiful plea deals to people who bring nothing to the table. Um, I really do not foresee this person being charged, or I'm sorry, not being. He's already charged with murder, but I do not foresee him being convicted of actual murder. Instead, I think he'll be offered a plea deal, and that plea deal will involve him pleading guilty to like reckless homicide or manslaughter, or um, the prosecution is going to look at the facts of the case and say, hey, we really don't have enough to proceed with a murder conviction. We're going to amend this down to, whatever lesser charge. But I really realistically think that the most likely thing is going to be Commonwealth Attorney's Office is going to offer him a plea deal, and he'll probably take it instead of trying to fight it. And he's not going to spend a whole lot of time in prison. The guy's, I think, 22 years old. He'll be out of prison before he's 30. I mean, most likely. So he's still got a life to live. Now, there were people, internet people, saying stupid stuff before some of these facts came out, and people were talking about, oh, he shouldn't have shot him while he was outside. He should have shot him when he came inside to make sure, it's not murder. And people making comments like, well, I heard that if you shoot someone, make sure they fall inside your house because then it's not murder. And then I've heard people say, not on this particular incident, but I've heard people say that they've heard that if you shoot someone and they fall out, they fall out the door and they're on the outside, you need to drag them in so that they're inside the house so you won't be charged with murder. That's some stupid, just goofy crap. And not all of it's just internet stupidness. I've actually heard people in person say this kind of crap. People talking about how they took a concealed carry class with someone, or someone they knew took a concealed carry class, and they was telling them about it, and they said that someone had told them that if you shoot someone and they fall out the window, they fall out the door, you drag them back in the house. That way you won't go to jail for murder. And it's like, that is the worst, the worst advice that could ever be given. You could just then turn a good shoot into a bad shoot just by tampering with physical evidence like that. There was a case here in Bowling Green, mid 2000s. I think it was like 2000. Man, when was it? Sometime between 2005 and 2010. I want to say it's like maybe 2007, but I'm not 100% sure. But there was a guy who was at home, and it might have been this side of the town too. I'd have to look that back up to be sure, but this might have actually been that same side of town, not too far from where this occurred. But this dude was home, and he was asleep. I forgot what he did. He had some type of work van, but he was at home during the day, and he was sleeping. He was a widow. His wife died from something. I can't remember what it was, but maybe cancer or something like that. She died. So he's living by himself, and it's during the daytime, and he has experienced break-ins before. and has had some stuff stolen. And so he has gotten these door lock things that are like little rods that you put up under the door handle itself, and then the base of it has like a rubber pad or something like that on it to create friction, and so you just basically wedge it up under the door handle, and that way a person can't like push the door open um, very easily. And so he had this on his back door. I won't say he probably had it on his front door too. I'm not really sure about the front door, but for sure he had it on his back door. And I think, if I remember correctly, he also said in his interview that he had the one of those type of locks on his bedroom door itself as well. And he is asleep and he hears glass breaking, and he gets up, he grabs his pistol, he walks down the hallway, comes around the corner, and he sees a hand reaching through his back door. And he has curtains up, so you can't see through the curtains in the door on who's on the other side, but there is a hand through the window of the door, reaching in, fiddling with the lock, trying to unlock it. And he starts blasting. He fires multiple rounds at the door or at the person, shooting through the door. Again, he cannot see. Only thing he can see is an arm sticking through the broken glass of his door. He cannot see who that arm is attached to. Starts blasting, fires multiple rounds. The person on the other side of the door is a 16-year-old. No, I'm sorry, not a 16-year-old. I think he's 15-year-old. He starts to turn around to run away and catches a round in the back of the head and kills him, boom, right then and there. And police get there, make the scene safe, and long story short, that dude is never charged with any crime. He's never convicted of anything. It's found that he acted in a justifiable manner because the person had basically broken the threshold of his castle, had his arm in through the door, and was trying to gain entry. And so the guy had a legitimate fear that if the dude tried to enter in, that he could come in there with violence and cause harm to him. So it was deemed that he was justified in using the deadly physical force that he did. So I just did a search for it. So this was in 2008 that this incident I'm talking about occurred. The suspect was 15-year-old Eros Barasaj, and he was trying to break into a home at 134 Whispering Hills Boulevard. And when I plug that in, that is that side of town. It's just right down the road from where this story right now on Audley Avenue is occurring. Like it's within walking distance. So yeah, like I said, a side of the town I do not want to live on. No, I'm sorry. So he lived at 134 Whispering Hills. The incident occurred at 525 Creekwood Court. So let me plug that one in. 525 well, that says Creekwood Avenue. Again, it's not too far from there. Same side. Again, walking distance. Like you very easily walk there. So go back to the news article. Homeowner was Jeff McGuire. So this article I'm reading, they're talking about a vigil, and they were wanting to hold the vigil outside the house where the incident occurred. And that case in of itself is interesting too, because after that incident occurred, the police confiscated all the weapons in the house, even weapons that were in a safe. And so this guy was left totally defenseless after this self-defense shooting. And there were people who were making death threats to this guy, the homeowner. And the police had all of his guns. So he was left unable to defend himself if any of them actually carried through with their death threats. But anyway, that incident was justifiable. This incident is obviously not, based off the information that's being presented right now, it is not justifiable. They had not, he was not inside the dwelling at the time of the incident. Well, hold on, let me back this up. So, this guy right here, Tylan, was not inside the residence while the would-be burglars were trying to gain entry and were actually inside the residence in some way. Based off the information being presented here, they were to the rear of the residence and were running away. And so, at that point, based off the information being presented, there's nothing to articulate that they were a credible threat. Now, what if information came out that said that this Tylan guy says, "Oh, one of them had a gun and was pointing it back towards me"? Well, that changes things, right? That changes things a lot. And then I think that he would have a claim to justifiable defense at that point. And I've talked about this before in other videos. Shooting people in the back. A lot of people, for whatever reason, seem to have a real problem with people being shot in the back. They think that it automatically means that a murder has occurred. They believe it to be a very unethical, immoral act. And I just do not see it that way. And when people generally start talking along those kind of lines, I like to bring out the what if question of, well, what if you were somewhere and there was an active killer just shooting people, just shooting kids, and their back was turned to you? Would you shoot them in the back? Or would you wait to be able to shoot them in the chest as they're walking away from you, shooting little children? Like, I know the answer. I know why I'm doing that, right? Like, yeah, I will burn that dude down. I will mag dump into his back, no problem whatsoever. But for the people who want to, for whatever reason, in their mind, do the right thing and yell at the guy so he'll turn and face you so you can shoot him in the chest. Like, you're living in La La Land. You really are. You are living in this fantasy world perpetuated by Hollywood, and it's really like this Hollywood Western kind of bullcrap mindset where you got to be faced off with your opponent and be squared off to them, and then you shoot at each other. Like that doesn't happen. That does not happen at all. At least not at least not nowadays. Now there were, obviously back in the day when there were duels, yeah, you would do that. You would square off with each other and throw lead at each other, but that has been banned. Have not done, no one's been able to do that for quite some time. And interestingly enough, the oath, like when you become a police officer here in Kentucky, like the oath says that you're swearing that you have never engaged in a duel with someone. Like when I took my oath, I remember like having to recite that and thinking, what is this wild shit? Like, I've never engaged in a duel. Like, who the fuck says that? They're like, who worries about that? But modern shooting, like no one stands there and faces each other and duels it out, right? Like that's just not really a thing. Um, People move during gunfights, and you need to be moving. You need to move in a gunfight. You need to aggressively explode off of the X, um, and you need to move. Move is an acronym that we learn in training for gunfighting. MOVE. Motionless operators ventilate easily. If you're not moving, you're getting ventilated. Um, so, um, Going back to what if this guy had said, well, he had a gun pointed back at me as he's running. That would change things. That would give him, I think, um, a shot at having a justifiable case. And in that kind of context, if that was true, or if that was what was going on, just because the person is moving away from you does not mean that they are withdrawing from this deadly encounter. It could just mean that they're moving to a position of cover to have a better advantage against you when they start throwing more lead at you or want to actually start throwing lead at you. And that's another aspect that I think just a lot of the general public doesn't understand because they don't study this stuff. They don't train for this stuff. Uh, the extent of the general public's knowledge in gunfighting comes from Hollywood and video games. Or for the ones who have taken some kind of level of training, the majority of those people, the extent of their training is from either a hunter safety course or a concealed deadly course. And that is some very, very basic information that does not go into a whole lot of detail about gunfighting. So, the people who know about gunfighting are cops, military, and citizens who are concerned and interested enough to go out to commercial firearms training schools and get the same level of training that, or actually not the same level, actually in some cases a better level of training than your local police and some of your military. Um, there are some training schools out there that their curriculum is good, and there are people who've taken enough courses to where they have more hours of training than your local police, your state police, your federal police, and they have more proficiency. There's there, and some of these people could be like chiropractors or computer nerds. They could be like IT or cyber security safety dudes who like going to these schools and learning how to shoot and do the tactical stuff, and they've got way more time and money into gear and training and stuff than what your local cops would have. Um, anyway, I digress. Um, but the general public just doesn't understand gunfighting stuff, and so when you say, "Oh yeah," this person, just because he was moving away doesn't mean that he was completely withdrawing from the encounter and signaling his intent to not want to do anything anymore. He could be moving to a position of cover to be more advantageous for him. They're not going to understand that. That's not something they're going to be able to easily comprehend. And when we talk about general public not knowing that kind of stuff, when we talk about a jury of your peers, well, that's general public, and it still is going to be hard for those people to understand those things, which is why I am truly scared shitless of being involved in any kind of incident because a jury of my peers is not a jury of my peers. Though I've gone to jury duty before, and I can tell you there are some dumb, dumb, dumb people who make it onto the jury. Um, I think that's the last place. Well, I mean, truly, it's not the truly last place you want to be. I mean, it's better than a body bag, but I mean, it's kind of it's kind of close to being in a body bag because there's some incredibly stupid people that sit on a jury. Um, And like when I hear people say, "I'd rather be tried by 12 than carried by 6," I'm like, would you though? Like, have you really sat during um, jury duty before? Have you ever had to, you know, be around grand jury and just see like the dumb looks on people's faces? And like, no, you don't. you don't. You don't want any of that. Trust me. Um, so a person, like I said, moving away from you doesn't mean that they're withdrawing from the encounter. They could be moving to a position of cover, or they could be moving to a better weapon, right? The saying of "I carry my pistol so I can fight my way to my rifle." Like, what if they're moving to a car that has a rifle or a shotgun, right? Um, or what if they're moving, in the active shooter scenario? What if they're just moving to another location to start killing other people, right? Um, so a person moving away from you with their back to you does not 100% mean that they're a no shoot target. They can be shot depending on the circumstances going on and you being able to articulate that you feared for your life or feared for the life of others. Um, and sometimes, that's the only thing that can be presented on a person. Let's say you're in a close encounter with someone, um, bad breath distance, and it becomes like an entangled gunfight or an entangled fight where you're fighting with each other and you're trying to gain control of their arms, etc. And they start to pull out a gun, and you're positioned behind them. Well, if you're positioned behind them and they've already pulled their gun out, number one, they're not pulling their gun out to be like in the middle of this fight, like, hey, look at this cool thing I got. Do you like it? Do you fancy it? No. They're pulling out because their intent is to kill you. Well, what are you going to do? Are you going to just completely let go of them and wait for them to turn around and point that gun at you so that you can shoot them in the chest and be morally right? No. They pulled that gun out. They brought that gun out into the fight with the intent to want to kill you. So the logical response, the reasonable response is to use the deadly physical force to protect yourself. And if that means shooting them in the back, that means shooting them in the back. But like I said, people seem to have an incredibly hard time comprehending that it's okay to shoot people in the back sometimes. Um, Again, as I said, it's like they live in this fantasy land uh, built up to them by Western media, right? Like Hollywood, Western. We're gonna face each other. Sundown. Main Street. You take 10 steps, and it's like, I get real, man. Like, it's not like that. Um, So the other interesting thing for this case is that he hid the gun that he used, like he put it in the bushes or the bush line or something like that. That's that in of itself, is rather peculiar. Why would you take this gun that you've used for, a potential defensive shooting, right? Like you're there to protect your sister and against burglars, and you have shot at people that you think are burglars. Um, why would you hide the gun? So, like, where is his mindset at during this crime, right? Did he know that what he was doing was wrong? Did he know that the act that he was performing was a criminal act that had no justification to it whatsoever? So I think that is going to be an important piece of this case as far as trying to establish, his mindset during this crime. I don't think it looks good at all. I don't see a very good, viable reason for concealing a weapon like that. I mean, if he would have gone back inside the house and set the gun on a dresser or open a dresser drawer and put it in there, okay, that I think would be fine, right? Like, especially if you don't have a holster. What if the gun came from the drawer, right? Like he would, just like if you pull the gun from your holster and you use it and you return it to your holster. Well, if you don't have a holster and you use the gun, what are you going to do with it, right? Are you going to lay it on the ground around everyone? No, that's not a safe option. So if he would have taken it back inside the house and laid it, in a coffee table dresser or a drawer or put it in a dresser drawer or something, I mean, they could have still charged him with, tampering with physical evidence, saying that he tried to hide it. But I think that would be something that would be a whole lot easier to explain and say, oh, well, this is where the gun came from, and I was just putting it there because I didn't want to walk around it within my hand because I was afraid if a cop showed up, they would shoot me with a gun in my hand, whatever. Or I didn't want to leave it laying on the ground out in the open where people could get a hold of it. Now he could, maybe, him in his defense could say, well, we didn't want to leave it laying on the ground where some kid could come to it. We wanted to hide it somewhere where no one could get to it. I wasn't trying to hide it because I thought I did something wrong. I was just wanting to put it over here so that, little kids wouldn't get to it. Maybe that could be their defense. Maybe that could be, their argument in court. I don't know. But that is something peculiar to me. It does stick out. If there is, a defensive shooting, doing something like that, like trying to hide stuff, is not a very good idea. It just looks really bad. Now, like I said, putting it back in your holster, taking it, putting it in your car, putting it back in your house. If you don't have a holster or whatever, those I think are acceptable things. If the scene is safe, right? Like, it wouldn't make much sense to go put your gun back up if there's another potential threat out there, and so you may need to be able to hold on to that gun until the police arrive. And then when you hear the sirens approaching and then quickly turn off, that's your cue to go ahead and just lay that gun on the ground before the police actually come around the corner with guns drawn and see you standing there with a gun in your hand. But taking it to some bushes or a tree line and then dropping it off there, like, that's not a very good option if you're just wanting to, not want to have a gun in your hand when the police arrive. It just looks incredibly bad. So there's not any other details released to the media. So can't really say much else about this case as far as what information has been released out to the public. The juvenile, same thing. So there's not much that has been released about the juvenile, and because of the way Kentucky's juvenile laws are, I don't foresee if a whole lot of detailed information about him coming out. Now, Tennessee is a little bit different in how they treat their juvenile records. They actually post mugshots of juveniles and release their names. So it's plausible that if he had a record in Tennessee, that that information could come out. I kind of doubt it, but as far as him possibly may or may not have been involved with the judicial system here in Kentucky, most likely no. None of those records would come out because, again, like I said, Kentucky has some pretty stringent laws, I guess you could say, and practices regarding juvenile information. They just don't like releasing juvenile names and stuff, which I think is totally wrong. I think that if juveniles are charged with certain crimes, their names should be released to the public for um, the public safety, right? Like the public needs to know who dangerous people are, and if you got a juvenile out there who has been caught before doing burglaries, then their name needs to be out there. If they're sex offenders, drug dealers, attempted murderers, or even murderers, their names need to be out there. Other juvenile stuff like truancy, stuff like that. No, like who cares? No one really needs their information like that blasted out. But other crimes, yes, most certainly. I think the public should know about that. But you're not going to find agencies out there here in Kentucky releasing it information very openly or very easily because they're all afraid of things happening to them, and they all kind of have this mindset of, oh, we cannot release any juvenile records whatsoever. That's really truly not the case. Juvenile records can be released in Kentucky under certain circumstances, but everyone just seems to kind of take this mindset of it's like top secret information from the CIA, like everything has to be redacted, blah blah blah. They just don't talk about it or say anything. Um, so we may or may not be able to learn about this juvenile's background. Um, so each state varies on use of force laws. Um, and some states do have provisions that say that you have a duty to retreat, basically. Kentucky is not like that. Kentucky is a stand your ground state. If you have um, the lawful right to be where you're at, you do not have to leave where you're at. And so the property itself there is an apartment complex, and so it's going to be very hard, I think, for him to say that he did know or did not know that those people had a lawful right to be there. Um, Now, if this was a um, single structure kind of property, it's like a house on a little acre plot of land or whatever, um, and they were on the land, yeah, he could be able to argue and articulate that he had the lawful right to be there and those other people did not. But when it's an apartment complex, everyone can be there, right? It's really hard to say who can and cannot be there. So I don't think he's going to be able to have much of a strong argument for standing his ground in those regards. Um, but for those viewers who are not in Kentucky, that is something you need to consider. What is your state law? Do you have a duty to retreat? And even if you are in a state like Kentucky that is stand your ground, do you really need to be standing your ground? Like, is it worth it to get into a gunfight? Is it worth it to use deadly physical force against a person? Do you have to use that deadly physical force? You know, let's say that, you're at home and the front door opens and a complete stranger walks in. Under Kentucky law, you're green light to blow that person away. if if you had a belt-fed machine gun legally, if you legally had a belt-fed machine gun and someone walks through your front door into your house unwelcome, don't know them, you are green light to give them the whole 9 yards. But do you have to? No. Context, right? Like if you live in an urban environment, um, near, for example, you got a college right near you, right? Like it could be some stupid drunk college student who has walked into the wrong home because they're just so stupid drunk. Does that person need a shotgun blast to the face? No, they don't. Um, but you would be justified in doing that, right? Um, but just because you're justified in doing it doesn't mean you need to do that. Because the physical fight is always going to have a legal fight and a mental fight. And so, we'll use the drunkard example. Someone walks into your house, you get out of bed, come down the hallway, you see them in your living room, you blast them. No questions asked. Okay, you're not going to the jail. You're not being charged with anything. You're completely justified. But then you find out, well, this guy, he was staying with some friends, two houses down, hadn't been there before. Your house and the house down the street kind of look similar. Maybe they got a similar car in the driveway. He goofed up. He thought he was at his friend's house, and he walked in, and then you fucking killed him. How is that going to affect you in your mental fight afterwards? Are you going to have a problem dealing with that? Is your conscience going to eat away at you knowing that you killed a person who really didn't need to be killed? They just walked into the wrong house? And what if that eats away at you so horribly bad that you check out, you take your own life? Well, what if it eats at you so much, like the stress and the anxiety causes problems for you? Do you have to take medications for it? You have to seek counseling for that. And then let's not forget that you blast someone in your house. There's going to be blood involved, right? Blood is going to seep out of them, and they're not going to. And depending on how they're shot, and if there's an obvious sign of death, it's not like after they've been shot, police are going to come in there, scoop them up, and take them away. The body is going to lay there for a amount of time, long enough for them to clear the scene, photograph the scene, take statements, and then put bags over the hands of the body and do everything they need to do, and then put the body in the body bag. Like the body's going to be laying there for an hour or more. So that's for sure an hour of that body leaking all the blood out of it that it can leak out. You're going to have to replace your carpet. You're going to have to replace your floors after that. You going to leave the blood stain there, right? Is that going to be your talking piece when people come over to visit? Like, hey, look at this stain. This dumbass drunk came in my house. I blasted him. So it's going to cause damage to your house. Or if you miss, now you got bullet holes in your wall. Or let's say you do shoot them and it over penetrates and it goes into the wall. You're going to have to repair the wall and stuff like that. But the biggest thing is the blood. The blood, you're gonna have to replace your whole carpet, right? It gets into the floors, hardwood, subfloor, and everything. Like, to do it the right way, it's a lot of work to clean that up and render it safe. Because again, you don't know what is in people's blood, and there are some diseases in people's blood that can survive for days after the blood has dried. So it is a biohazard, right? It is a biohazard scene, and you have to have proper protection if you're going to be cleaning this up yourself. If you're not going to be cleaning it up yourself, you're going to be hiring someone to come clean it up, and that's going to be a process, right? It's going to be a process to clean that up. If you have any interest in learning what that is, there's a pretty cool YouTube channel. I forgot the exact name of it, but there's these people who do crime scene cleaning, and they'll go to scenes of like people who've been dead or found dead for like a week or two after they've been dead, um, and they'll do the cleanup of it, or someone um, unsubscribed from life using a shotgun. Um, they'll come in and clean up that mess, right? So the YouTube channel is called Crime Scene Cleaning, and um, it has a lot of cool videos on here. But Spalding, it's used to be, I think it used to be called Spalding Decon. I think that's the name of her company, is Spalding Decon. Yeah, here it is. It says Crime Scene Cleaning by Spalding Decon. Um, you just search for Crime Scene Cleaning on YouTube or Spalding Decon. You'll come across our channel, and you can watch some videos of them going into houses where dead bodies have been and they've bled out, or they've decomposed and all the fluids have gone out. And the process to clean these places and get them back to living conditions, it can be a lot. And so, like I said, you shoot someone, their body's not being moved right away. It's going to sit there. Now, if they're showing signs of life, obviously they're going to drag them out of the house and take them to the hospital. But if it's an obvious death, they're going to sit there, and whatever blood they have to bleed out to ooze out of their body, it's oozing out on your floors, and that's going to have to be cleaned up and fixed. And that, of course, is going to maybe affect your home insurance, or maybe even your renter's insurance. They may want to like, hey, they may fight you on that. They may drop you after that, so that's going to cause some issues for you there. Um, but like I said, knowing your laws, and knowing when you can and cannot shoot is very important, because if you do it wrong, you can spend a good chunk of your life living in the concrete box, or you could be spending the rest of your life in the concrete box. And if you ever go to that concrete box, even for a short period of time, a year or 2 years, that's going to affect you for the rest of your life if you have a felony. And your way of life, your life comforts are going to be gone. You're obviously, you're not going to be able to own a firearm anymore if you're a convicted felon. It's going to be it's going to be hard for you to find a job as a convicted felon. If you had a good career before a bad shoot, there's not a really, really, really great chance that you can get a good career after that as a convicted felon. Any certifications you may have had, you may lose those. If you was like an EMT or something, you may not be able to keep your EMT license anymore as a convicted felon. It can be very life altering. So you got to know the laws. You got to know when you can and cannot shoot. You have to know that. You just cannot claim ignorance, right? Like, ignorance does not excuse you from your actions. You have to know what the rule book is, and you have to know how to fight too, right? That in itself can be a whole nother video. Taking actual gunfighting courses and stuff like that, but knowing the law. So. As I said, each state's a little bit different with their laws. Kentucky, those use of force laws can be found under Chapter 503 of the KRS, Kentucky Revised Statutes. And on my channel, I've also copied the Kentucky Carrying Concealed Deadly Weapons training video that is in the CCW class. It has the staff attorneys from Frankfort in there talking, reading verbatim what the use of force laws are in Kentucky, where you can and cannot carry concealed, and they talk about criminal and civil liability. If you do it wrong, like what could be happening to you, etc. I highly recommend watching that video. It's about 2 hours long, but it has good information in there. presents it all to you in a easy, digestible manner, and you don't have to go poking around, searching through state laws, trying to figure out what the laws are. So if you live in Kentucky, go watch that video. And if you don't watch the video and you just want to read, look up KRS Chapter 503, has the use of force laws in there, and you can read up on that. I'll put that link in the description box, or the information on how to find it in the description box. Other states, I'm sorry, I wish I could remember what every state law is, but we got 50 states, and so it's really hard to understand and comprehend what all those state laws are. But if you do live in Kentucky and you want to go travel to other parts of the U.S., the Kentucky State Police website, under the CCW tab, has a map of the United States, and you can click on those states. And it's been a while since I've been to it. There were some states, because some states from time to time change their websites and their domains and stuff like that. So there was a time where a couple states, the links were broken and it didn't go straight to a website, but you could Google it and it would still find the correct link. But as far as the correct link working on the map, some of them were broken, but the other ones, you can go click on the state and it would bring up that state's statutes on use of force laws, or where you can and cannot carry concealed weapons in that state. And so, other than that, Google or any other search engine is a great tool, right? All you have to do is type in the name of your state and then type in use of force law, or deadly force law, or concealed carry law, and you should be able to navigate through there pretty easily and find what the laws are in your state, and know where you can and cannot carry, and when you can and cannot shoot. And the best way to really get good information is just to go sign up and take a concealed carry course, right? All the relevant and pertinent information is going to be all rolled into one in a concealed carry course. Probably the best way to get that information is taking an actual class. All right, so that's it. Talked about the incident, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's it. That's all I've got to talk about this. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching.